It's actually a multi-state operator that operates in Maryland, Illinois, along with Massachusetts and Missouri, and more notably, Ohio, which is set to go live by the end of this month. And it is none other than MariMed, which trades on the OTC and the CSE under the ticker symbol MRMD. So how much have you been following this company? What have you learned about them?
Yeah, so just to talk about how we prepare for the show. So I go through a bunch of names I look at, and then I find companies of interest. So on the show, I probably looked at 20 companies. We
Yep.
came up with five. To get to the point that I can make a nice conversation about a company here, probably takes me a couple hours per company. But then on some companies, we go deep with actual research reports, and I've done one on MariMed. So that a research engagement or report is probably 20 or 30 hours. So we can speak very deeply about our understanding about this business.
So I always ask the question, what are some short-term catalysts involving this company? I highlighted Ohio, which is on deck, and how they're, that's going to be a big market. It's a growth state, as I like to categorize it in the US. They're looking actually to acquire more assets in the state, and also a state that's extremely important when it comes to wholesale, and a big opportunity, I think, for some of their products like Betty's Eddies that comes to mind. But first things first, you invested 20 to 30 hours of research within this company. What comes to mind when you first think about this company? And again, why it interests you?
Well, first of all, I'll just say as a catalyst for the industry, when you compare everything to beer, wine, liquor, and spirits, cannabis is still very small. The output is expected to be $43 billion this year. The others, when you combine them, tobacco, beer, wine, and spirits, is 362 billion. So there's still a lot of runway to go there, as there seems to be a transition of people being attracted to cannabis instead of other products there. So that kind of gives us a bit of a comparison.
Well,
But
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
finish your thought.
No, no, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a stat that came out in the state of Florida this week, Amendment 3, which is basically trying to pass for adult use come federal election time in November. And early polls by Fox News is reporting that people 45 and under are 85% in favor of passing adult use cannabis. And we all know Florida's not the only state that strongly feels that way. So to your point, yes, alcohol still has a bulk of the share, but this is going to change. And I think when we look back at this 10 years from now, it's a totally different game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're going deep into a company like this, I do a comparative analysis. So I looked at
Okay.
20 different companies that MariMed could be compared to, and then I can make some observations. And I have some observations to share about their balance sheet, their income statement, and their spending on capital expenses or expenditures or CAPEX, as it's often called. And then we can talk about valuation.
Well,
So first,
yeah,
let's
let's
look
look
at
at the
each of
chart
these.
let's look at the chart right now. Look at some of these company comparisons that you outlined.
Yeah, so on the balance sheet, what's interesting here is we compare liabilities to assets. So MariMed has 56 cents of debt compared to a dollar of assets. The median and average is 70 cents or 76. So it's
Okay.
a more conservative company. Now they've decided this is after this year, they've added some debt for expansion, but still they're much more conservative. So this would lend to a profile of a cannabis investor that wanted a company that was more conservative.
Okay. Good to know, which is actually a good thing in this space, right? When you think of the volatility,
Absolutely.
but go on.
Yeah. And then the second, we'll look at their income statement. So obviously, even if it's a conservative company, you want them growing fast. And this is somewhere where the company has really stood out. Over the last 3 years, its average growth rate has been just under 43% a year.
Strong.
And then in the last year, it was 11% in the last 12 months, where the median company was only 3.8.
Yeah.
So they've managed to really outpace when it comes to their revenue growth. But what's so intriguing is there's this thing called, you want to be one of the fast growth 40 or rule of 40 companies in
Yep.
technology and other industries. And the idea is that your gross marginal profit rate and your revenue growth over the last 3 years is above 40. Well, this company's above 80. So they
Wow.
just blow that out of the water
Good stat.
about
Great
how
stat.
how quickly they're growing. So that's something that's fantastic. But
Okay.
the other thing that go ahead.
No, I was going to say some of the there's two or three or four companies that you give, I guess, comparisons to, like MariMed too. What are some of those companies that you compare them to?
Yeah, so what I did was I took the MSOS ETF and
Yeah,
I took every company that had a market cap under $500 million and then put it into a benchmark to compare to MariMed. So
gotcha.
there's 21 investments within MSOS, and I compared it to the 16 that were below 500 million in market cap.
Good outline. Okay. All right. So some great stats that you outlined right there. What are we looking at as far as revenue over the past 12 months?
Yeah, so the revenue is significant. It's $152 million dollars in the last 12 months. But what I find is very unique about this business is where they decide to spend their cash flow. So when it comes to, they have a significant spending on CAPEX. So when we look at the next chart, we can see that in the industry average, about companies are spending 5 cents of their revenue on CAPEX. MariMed is 13.4.
Okay.
So this leads to future revenue because
Yes.
if you're investing in facilities, if you're investing in locations, this comes back to you in the future. And so they're a group that is a leader in how much they're putting back in the business. And so
100%.
this often is a factor to predict future revenue growth.
Yeah, and I do know that they want to acquire assets, and their CEO John Levine, before joining MariMed, has a big background in commercial real estate, so he knows all about locations, which interests as well. As far as free levered cash flow, what'd you find?
Yeah, so here they're a unique business as well. They had leverage free cash flow last year was negative of 4.8 million, but that's because capex is taken out.
Cut.
So with that, so what they did last year, conservatively for their size, they went into debt a few $1 million to be able to support their capex budget. But
Yeah.
I would look at that as an investment.
Okay.
And so this is where you have to be very clear when you are looking at leverage free cash flow. You always have to look at capex as well.
Gotcha.
And so this tells a bit of a different story when we look at it.
Something they don't shy away. Okay, moment of truth. Is this a stock that you would own?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the reason why. If we pull up the next chart, we can see their valuation that I worked through. And so when I go through to value the company, I compare it many different ways. I look as a valuation based on their growth. I look at a valuation based on their revenue, and also based on their value as whole as a company compared to their competitors. Then I did the calculations about what would happen if 280E changes came out, and
Huge.
then with all of that, I made a pre 280 valuation and a post 280E, then blended them, and it
Drum
came out
roll,
to
drum roll. I want to see this. What do you got?
yeah, it came out to 63 cents or a nice 186% return.
Nice.
So it's something that I'd be very intrigued to, especially with them having a more conservative balance sheet compared to their peers.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. What'd you all think? Is there any information that we're missing? Is there anything you want us to cover? As these industries heat up, we're getting access to more and more big hosts. So let us know the questions that you want us to ask for you. As usual, smash that like button. We want this to go viral. Click on that bell for all notifications for the latest interviews that we're doing. And as usual, let's build this community. Subscribe to our channel because we appreciate it, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.